eyeballs are shifting. Some of the stats tell us that millennials are only watching 30% live television. That's heavily down on what they were watching before. We know the eyeballs are elsewhere on social media and all sorts of other platforms, but I think that virtual reality, which I'm going to talk about, has a huge potential in terms of being a storytelling medium. And I'm just going to tell you a little bit about my journey in terms of storytelling that kind of relates to how we got to this new platform, and also a little bit about what I'm doing now, which will give us an idea to think about how we storytell in that medium. Okay, it's always really embarrassing to show you early pictures, but at the age of 6, a lot of people wanted to be train drivers and go, get on the moon, and I always just wanted to be a storyteller. That's all I wanted. That's all I've ever wanted to be. Thank God people have paid me to do it. My career has spanned. I could never have expected it to. I imagine it would ever span the different digital platforms it has. From university, where I shot Super 8 films, to work in Hollywood briefly, to 10 years at the BBC, which the period I was there, I was very, very lucky. I was able to go all over the world and shoot all sorts of films in different mediums. And then I decided with a number of other people to set up Atlantic Productions to have a place where we could look at different ways, different toolkits of how to tell stories. So we set up different companies. We set up a company with computer graphics, which will allow us to enter different worlds, the future and the past. We set up a company with 3D, with Sky, called Colossus, to start telling 3D storytelling. We set up an arts company. All this was integrating into our storytelling. And then finally, the virtual reality company. So my first experience of the whole virtual reality world happened in 1996, when I went on a trip to California. And the first place I stopped, you can see from my guest badge, was Industrial Light and Magic. Absolutely extraordinary place at that time. It was taking you into the world of dinosaurs, taking you exploding volcanoes, going into space. It was really pushing all the things we could do as storytellers. And then I went very close to another place which was being revolutionary in storytelling, Pixar, where it was taking computer technology and huge creative talent, and basically the whole story could now be told within a computer. Quite amazing. Toy Story and hundreds of other films that have come out of Toy Story have been influenced by Pixar. I got my break, however, in this area when I was sitting doing one of the very first live, I guess it was a webcast, with John Gage, a real guru at that time of the internet, and was at Sun Microsystems. He took the talent that we had at Atlantic, tiny little Atlantic, and put it with Sun Microsystems, the company that had already pioneered the engines, as it were, the computers that were running and rendering all the stuff for Pixar. So here we were in 1996, and you'll see Michael Deering there, one of the absolute pioneers, along with Ivan Sutherland, who's not there, of VR. And we were working out how to use our joint forces to create a virtual chariot ride, where we would sit, or a number of us would sit, and we would race each other in the Circus Maximus. So you can see this is the kind of portal we were in. It's set up by today's standards, quite clunky. You don't need all this paraphernalia. So we started, this isn't the actual thing, but we started to build a stadium, which Circus Maximus, we knew what that looked like. We then got the horses, we then got the chariots, and then we had a problem. We tried to put the crowd in, and the storage ran out. So what I had seen was an incredible medium that just wasn't ready yet. So what we took back to London with us was a whole different way of potentially telling stories. So part of the company started taking these stories, since Jules Verne's world, where we could go into worlds we never believed we could build, based it on a factual basis where we could. We scanned the harbor and recreated Cleopatra's city. We started to go into the mind as much as you ever could of people like Tutankhamun. And then when we made a feature documentary about Everest, we started to do the shots, because we created it digitally, about Everest that you could never see, because a helicopter would fall out of the sky. But the real change in storytelling for me on different platforms came when someone I had known for a long time at the BBC, David Attenborough, and I joined forces. This was fantastic. I'd always grown up watching Attenborough, known him at the BBC, but now I got the chance for 11 productions over the next 8 years to work with him. And we were both fascinated by different ways of storytelling. For the first time, David put the 3D glasses on, and we wanted to find ways not just to shoot in 3D, but to start to get immersive in a way that audiences hadn't seen Attenborough's films. This is a few films in when we were working on a film which was actually shot very close to here at the Natural History Museum, Natural History Museum Alive, where all the 10 creatures that David loved, extinct, would come alive at night. And David wanted them to be accurate, and he wanted them to behave like real creatures. I can tell you that put huge pressure on everything. But it paid off because we were able to bring things like the giant moa and other exciting things back together. But what I realized the other day, looking back at the storyboards, is the team and I were already actually thinking in a sort of 360-degree way. It's just we couldn't shoot it. We could shoot 180. IMAX, of course, you're pretty much getting to 180. So we were plotting it, but we couldn't shoot it, which is quite interesting. And you'll see from this clip, we were just beginning to think, as it were, out of the normal framing.
But Smilodon stalked its prey, creeping quietly across the plains until it got really close. And then it pounced.
Now, the interesting thing is you're not seeing that in 3D, and so if you can imagine when that's in 3D, you're beginning to get that immersive thing. So it didn't take long that I came in one day and showed David a headset which could do the whole of the VR business, or show people the 3R business, and he was very excited. So then we started to do a whole load of virtual reality. Now, the very first one we picked, I think, was probably sensible, because you want to be in a computer world. Once again, we collaborated with museums around the world. We brought fossils back to life. We worked out what they look like. This is one of my absolute favorite creatures. Opibimia has 5 eyes and a trunk. How cool is that? It could be on a Star Wars set or something. But this fellow was popping around 550 million years ago in the Cambrian Ocean. And we wanted to take you guys in a completely submerged journey with David as your guide. The beauty of when you're building these kind of, or you have these kind of CGI sets, is you can see the camera can move around. Now, we realized we were going to have to do this on an on-the-rails experience. On the rails means we're pushing you through the experience, but you're able to look where you want to. But actually, when we first started building this, we built it in a game engine. And unfortunately, game engines we were using were not ready yet for the headset, so we adapted it very quickly. This is a rectilinear image, which I'm just going to talk over. Now, this is seeing the whole thing that is in the headset, because I can't show you virtual reality that's wrapped around you, but you are able to move in and around with the creatures. It's a pretty extraordinary experience. So, having done that, ever ambitious, we decided now we wanted to go live action. So where are we going to go live action? Okay, let's go live action on the Great Barrier Reef. Let's put David on the deepest dive that's ever been done on the Great Barrier Reef, right to the bottom of the ocean, but let's record this in virtual reality. Well, that's problematic because, first of all, you've got all sorts of parallax and other problems within the Triton submarine you see here itself, trying to get all the perspectives right. So that's tricky. And then you've got to actually get cameras outside the sub. And inside the sub, I guess we had a sort of about 14 cameras bound together. Outside, we had 2 units with, I think, about 6 cameras each floating around, as you can see here. Now, it's actually very complicated because I'm not going to go into details, but you've got to worry about stitch lines and everything else. But it's actually a very exciting experience because there's David Attenborough, and you're with David Attenborough in the sub.
The Triton is now in the water, and we're ready to begin our dive.
Service, this is Nadir. Am I clear to bed, over?
Roger, Nadir, you are clear to bed,
In this unique virtual reality experience, I'm inside a state-of-the-art submersible with me as I explore the Great Barrier Reef as never before.
You are cleared to vent, cleared to vent.
Roger, venting now.
Enjoy a stunning 360-degree view of the reef as I guide you ever deeper through this extraordinary community of animals.
So, where did we decide to show it? Well, we initially decided to have our experiences in theatres, basically, because we managed to create some software at Alchemy that we could join everybody together. So all of us would be in the same experience at the same time. And we're talking about storytelling now that had moved from 11 minutes, and the message we got back, people wanted longer storytelling. So this was about 20 minutes or so in length. And in fact, it opens again on Monday if you want to go and see it. And it's a pretty amazing experience here at the Natural History Museum. But what's interesting is it's now opened at museums around the world. And of course, experiences we're doing now are much more open play on app sites and for downloading and things. But we did think, and we still think, people want to go in and experience virtual reality in a place they can trust and with a headset that works properly. So, what are we doing now? Okay, well, Alchemy is moving in all sorts of different directions. We're working with medical institutions around the world, inside the human body, which is an extraordinary place to be, telling stories about that. We're looking at cities in a completely different way using virtual reality, which I think is going to be very interesting. These are just a handful of things. And then we're scanning. This is one of the great pyramids, or one of the pyramids. We scanned it using LiDAR, and we're able, using a game engine, to put all of us in this room to walk through in real time this pyramid and interact with each other, which is very exciting. So we're moving on. But what I would say is that, all these mediums have to be driven by the storytelling. The storytelling has to push the technology, as we found with 3D. You cannot expect to just have the technology you have. You have to push it. People have to create better technology. There is no doubt that new things are happening in VR, and there's new headsets, there's new software, there's new just about everything coming. But it's the stories that are going to drive this medium. I want to think when somebody puts their first headset on, they are blown away and they realize this is a storytelling medium. This is without doubt a step in human evolution. Of course it is. I can take you into time and space. You've never been able to do that before and be immersed. Let's, as storytellers, take this opportunity on what I think could be a very exciting medium. Thank you very much.